All right, so now need to go back to Mr. Edholm for his NMRA divisions and clubs.
Cool. Thanks, Jim. Tonight I was actually we're going to have somebody on, and it also fell through. This has been it sounds like April Fools came on the 5th for us this year. Um, so what I decided to do is I'm actually doing something later on this evening. I'm going to jump off of our meeting here, and I'm going to one of our local clubs, and I'm going to do a presentation for them. They're having their nightly meeting. One of the things that's happened in our area is we are pretty much don't have any railroad shows, any model railroading events, big events in 2023. None announced in 2024. So the opportunity to meet model railroaders that are not NMRA members is pretty challenging for us. So, one of the things we've done is we have a recruiting marketing team working in our region, and one of the areas we had identified was clubs. So one of the things I'm doing is starting a process of going out to all the clubs in our area and talk to them about NMRA membership, both at a club level and at an individual level. So what I thought I'd do is, if you guys are good with being kind of guinea pigs, I'm going to kind of run through the presentation I put together to talk to them. And what I'd be interested in is, are we conveying the values and benefits of NMRA membership? And for those of you that maybe are not members or on the line, are some of the points we're hitting on points that would be interesting for you? Because I think one of the things that we tend to with NMRA membership, people tend not to really understand why you want to do it. And if you go to the national website, you still don't really understand what it means to you. So with that, I'll go ahead and the real question first is, why do you want to become an NMRA member? Why now? Why is this a great time to do it? And so before I do, I'd really like to talk to you about what are the benefits of membership. And when I look at anything, and anytime I spend money or do something and make an investment, you want to figure out, what are the different benefits? And sometimes the benefits are personal, sometimes they come to your family, sometimes they come to your community. In terms of NMRA membership, I would think that you think about three kinds of benefits. Um, Clearly, one benefit is the hobby overall. The NMRA is responsible for a number of things. We'll talk about a few of those that make this hobby much more enjoyable for all of us. There are some benefits for groups. You guys are a club. We'll talk about some of those benefits at a club level. But then really what's most important is, what's the benefit to me personally? Why should you do it? And why am I going to make the argument that the NMRA is one of the best investments you can make? And that tonight I'm going to show you, I think you can make an investment that'll really improve your modeling in the next year for incredibly low cost. So let's talk a bit about those benefits. If you look at the benefits of NMRA membership, and look at those categories, the first area is the one that most people understand the NMRA for. When you look at it from the outside, if you go to the website, if you see an ad in a magazine for the NMRA, what you'll hear is it's standards, it's promoting the hobby. There's great online learning, it's creating a community. You'll hear them talking about things like conventions. And, those things are all really important. In fact, I'll argue that the standards are absolutely essential. Can you imagine where we would be as a hobby if we had no standards? Promoting and getting new people in and running a national train show and those kinds of things, again, very important. The online learning, there's great online learning through NMRAX. But one thing that I always ask when somebody asks me for money is, I say, if I don't give you the money, will those things stop happening? And those things, quite frankly, from the things that NMRA does for the hobby, the organization will do for the hobby. So we'll talk then about these other two areas, because I think those are the ones that are most important for the group and for you individually. So let's talk first about the group. So the biggest benefit for the group is the idea that if you are a 100% NMRA club, you can get $1 million of liability insurance for a $50 documentation fee. And it turns out this year, there are higher liability limits. It's interesting. We're actually seeing this first from our friends in the North in Canada. that some locations are asking now for $5 million liability limits. So they're actually, the NMRA is now providing a capability of extending your liability up to that $5 million level at a fairly reasonable amount of money. So I think that's going to become very significant. As you start looking at getting $5 million worth of liability insurance, you're often talking, five, six, $7,000 of cost. A $1 million liability insurance typically is about $1,500 per $1,200 to $1,500 per year. Someplace it may even be higher. If you have 30 members in your club, that's $50 each. 60 is 25. So one thing that's very important to think about, if you look at your club and you say, this is the question obviously to ask is, 30, 40, 50% of your members are already NMRA members. For that little difference for the other 50%, now you can enjoy that liability insurance instead of paying $1,500 to an insurance company. And then, the other thing that is really, we see this with a number of clubs is, begin to participate in the NMRA group events as a club. And we'll talk about events, and I think you'll see how that can work. From a personal benefits perspective, and this is really where, in the end, you're going to be asked, I'm going to ask you to spend some money. And I ask you to spend some money, I want to tell you why it's good for you to spend your money. The first thing is that, you get a monthly magazine. It's a great magazine. It's got some very good articles. It's available in digital or print. I'm kind of moving to digital now because it's a little bit lower cost. But the reality is the magazine's great, but there are lots of magazines out there, but it's a good magazine. The one thing that's in the program now is really exciting is this discount. So there are over 50 model railroad suppliers that have a range of discounts from free shipping to up to 20% off if you're an NMRA member, and you now can apply and get that discount when you make those purchases. So, one of the things we found is that, I'm going to talk to you about your membership costs in a little while. It's very easy if you're spending $500 a year with these vendors across the piece, and a lot of vendors are going to direct purchasing. $500 at a 15% discount, right there, you're paying $75. You more than paid for your membership. So, one thing that you can see very quickly is that it's easy to compensate for your membership doing that. The other thing that we think is really exciting here locally is we do great local events. Here in the Coast Division, we're doing 2 Coast auctions every year. They feature 300 to 400 items. They typically include clinics in the AM. We have typically 2 other events that are clinics and activities in the AM, and then local layout tours in the PM. The other thing we do is we typically do 2 or 3 what we call a field trip a year, and that's typically a visit to a location in the morning and then layout tours in the afternoon. So we'll go to a prototype location, and we'll show a couple examples of these. We also have other events. We have operating sessions we sponsor, as well as we do semi-weekly virtual meetings. We have a large contingent that gets together on Zoom and does modeling together and reviewing modeling and some clinics. So if you think about this, this is almost once a month physically and a couple of times a month virtually. You have an opportunity to engage with other modelers, learn from other modelers, and build your community. This is an example of an event we did last year in September. We had 4 clinics. You can kind of look at the clinics there. The hands-on soldering clinic actually had multiple soldering stations. People were learning by someone who basically was a professional solderer and solderer technician and training in that. Earl Gerbavon actually is a master model railroader, very recently builds amazing structures and did some amazing scenery details for us, as is Dave Adams. And Fran Foley actually did a Tinkercad demo. So those of you that are interested in 3D printing, Tinkercad is definitely the program to use for most of us. It's a different type of program. It deals with objects, not drawing. And Fran actually showed you how to get in. He does some amazing models using Tinkercad. So that was the morning. We did this at one of our local clubs that has a large facility. You can see some pictures there at the bottom. And in the afternoon, we had 9 layouts open. Now, for those of you who are not from California, you may not know some of these names, but we had Bob Brown, who you'll see on the Modeling Lifestyle in a week. Bob Brown's layout was open. Bob Brown's layout is like visiting the last 30 years of the Narrow Gauge Gazette. because he has a significant percentage of the models that have been in that magazine are on his layout in his workshop. Seth Newman, who was actually one of the folks who was supposed to be on tonight, who has been in the OPSIG, one of the leaders of the operations movement, his amazing layout. Dave Adams, amazing ON3 layouts. So we have a number of layouts that are very cool, and we talk to local people. We can talk to about being able to see those. This was an opportunity just on a Saturday afternoon to go see 4 or 5 super layouts. And these are some images of those layouts. You can see, you're talking about S scale. We were talking about S scale earlier. The top second image from the left is actually a very large S scale layout of the New York Central. And when you see over on the far right, you see Bob Brown in his workshop and a picture of Bob Brown's layout. So one of the things our members get to do is at least 5 or 6 times a year, you get an opportunity to go see layouts, talk to layout owners, and meet them. This was another example. This was an event we canceled on March 11th. And we're actually going to be doing this probably in June. So if you become a member, you can join this. What we were doing was going down to the South Coast, down in the Monterey Bay area, and first going to Roaring Camp, where they were going to host us for their steam up, for a shop tour, for a train ride. One of the modular groups was going to be there on that weekend. And then in the afternoon, we actually had 7 layouts open, some pretty amazing layouts you can see from the photos here. Lastly, for those of us that are in the hobby, conventions are an interesting opportunity to go immerse yourself for a few days. And so here basically where we are in the Coast Division, we have a couple of conventions coming up. Next year in 2024, we'll be doing the regional convention locally. And it's going to be exciting. $139 hotel rooms in the middle of Silicon Valley. We already have 15 layouts committed. We have 15 committed clinicians. For example, Bob Brown's going to have both his layout open and be doing a couple of clinics. We'll have great daily options. Every day in the middle of the day, we have clinics in the morning and the evenings. In the middle of the day, you'll have options for layout tours, operating sessions, prototype tours. We're probably going to have some popular clinics repeated, as well as potentially some 4-hour special blocks. We're looking at things like a DCC boot camp for those of you who really are more DC people and want to move into DCC. And of course, then the national convention will be in Long Beach in 2024. Finally, I really want to talk about why I think this is important to you, not just because of modeling, but for your health. The reality is model railroading is a great hobby. And it's a great hobby because it can be multiple hobbies together. Atlantic published an article in 2018 that said that people that have 4 hobbies live 5 years longer in retirement. When you read the article, what you realized is it was less around having 4 hobbies and more around having separate social circles and focus circles that kept you engaged and busy. And the beauty of model railroading is model railroading can become just that kind of a hobby, where you not only have, a club that you're part of, but other layouts you participate in, operating sessions, clinics. And one of the beauties of becoming part of the NMRA is all those places are opportunities to make new connections, to meet new people, to build that community around yourself that keeps you engaged and healthy and moving forward, and really is all about living longer and being happier and ultimately using those skills to become a better modeler. So anyway, I'd like to close tonight with a great offer. We have a thing called the Rail Pass. It's a 9-month trial membership. $20 is one of the best deals, but tonight, if you want to join tonight, you pay $10, we'll pay the other $10. And far and away, this is the best $10 modeling investment you can make this year because, quite frankly, you'll get to participate in all the events. You can register and go to the conventions because you'll be a member. And if you guys decide, because now you can be 100% membership, you can use the liability insurance and have a huge savings for the club as well for next year. So really like to talk to any of you who'd like to talk more about joining, have questions. I think it's a really exciting opportunity. And like I say, if you want to spend the best $10 on modeling this year, you're going to spend it tonight. Anyway, so what do you guys think? Arrows are fine. I mean, by the way, I really am looking for commentary more than, because I really want to get an idea. Was it a persuasive message? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, Phil, for me, I think it was. It's pretty much all the things that I heard 30 years ago or more that made me join. I think one of the things that struck me the most was the standards that they created that made the hobby what it was.
Yep.
And then not that that would have anything to do with my membership, my involvement or anything, but just I felt that the organization should be respected because of that.
Yep. And I think that's absolutely true. I mean, there is a part of things that say, you know, some people will say, yeah, I'll do it just because it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the majority of people.
Let me play devil's advocate with you for a minute.
Sure.
NMRA is a bunch of HO guys, isn't it?
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, what's amazing to me is that, you know, if you go back and look at that set of layout tours that we had there, yes, there were HO layouts, but there were ON3 layouts, there were S layouts, there were garden layouts. You know, clearly when you have an organization that reflects the majority, a significant percentage of the hobby, in the end, that organization is going to represent the demographics of the hobby. You know, it's interesting. I live in California. We all live, you know, for tonight, I'm going to talk to folks. We all live in California. I always think it's interesting when people say, you know, California is really average. Well, yeah, when you're 15% of the population, by definition, you almost have to be average because you define the average. And I think that's the important thing about the NMRA is, yeah, there are a lot of model railroaders in the NMRA that are HO model railroaders. But the reality is that's the hobby. And HO is by far the most popular scale in the hobby. But what's really important is it's not about scale. It's about skills. It's about what you can learn. And it's about the relationships you can build. And by the way, you know, the ON3 and operations, or the operations community, which very much part of is almost scale independent.
Ed, this is John Mick. I'd like to make a couple comments. Question, first of all, where is the 2024 PCR convention? Where is it being held?
In the PCR convention in Silicon Valley.
Where at?
It's actually at a place called, it's going to be at a place called the Sonesta. And it's called the Sonesta San Jose.
It's in San Jose.
Well, it's actually not in San Jose. It's actually in Milpitas, which is
okay. Yeah,
but it turns out
there. I have a lot of family there.
Oh, if you know the Bay Area,
yeah.
This hotel is right at the intersection of 880 and 237.
Okay.
And
yeah.
What's really interesting is a few years ago, someone did a demographic analysis based on the addresses of the division, and the center of population mass is about a half a mile from the hotel. which by the way is really good for layout tours. The beauty of this convention that we're going to do is the layouts that are going to be within driving distance in an afternoon are going to be pretty amazing in terms of the number of layouts you can see. And quite frankly, the other thing in the Bay Area is most of the layouts have not been open for 8 years, except for I think at O-Scale West and occasionally at an OPSIG, a few of them. So
I might be interested in coming to that because I have
would love to have you come. By the way,
I'd even volunteer to give a clinic.
If anybody ever, I'll make this pitch because I'm going to make the pitch to everyone. If you're interested in a trip to the Bay Area in 2024, if you want to come to California, it's a great time to come. You know, it's April. Spring is a great time, and you know where you are is kind of a great center point. We actually set the hotel up to get the rate starting on Friday night of the weekend before. So if anybody wanted to come in, they could stay over there and use it as a base to do some sightseeing.
That would even be greater. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're trying to create, you know, one of the things we're really dealing with is, you know, quite frankly, saying this is a whole separate discussion. We're saying, and I believe fundamentally that people doing conventions have to begin to think profoundly differently. You know, 20 years ago when you did a convention, all you really worried about was putting on a convention. I think today and going forward, you have to think much more about selling the convention than putting on the convention. Yeah. Marketing the convention, identifying what you're going to sell. It's why We literally started soliciting layouts for a convention in 2024, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so if you allow me to do a pitch.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I'm the chief clerk and paymaster for the Arizona division. I'm also the secretary of the 2023 convention. We are having a steam train ride, steam only. The steam engine for the Grand Canyon Railroad is June 7th to the 11th. So if you're interested in riding a steam train where its engine is steam only, no diesels, why, I think it's June 10th. It's the Saturday. So go to the website, just look up the Arizona division. You'll see the convention advertised. It's going to be a great convention. Thursday and Friday, there'll be a lot of good clinics and a lot of clinics that just about the local area, the Grand Canyon. We have some rangers coming in. On Saturday, then will be the steam train ride. On Friday, there'll be a tour of the engine shop and they'll be finishing firing up the steam engine. So they only run that once a month. And this is a charter train for us. So if you're an NMRA member, fine. You can join the NMRA with your 9-month pass you just talked about. It's a fantastic opportunity if you want to ride a steam train. So if you just go to the website, you'll find that it's just a great opportunity. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
I think, John, you pointed out something that, is an interesting thought process is, conventions as a way to kind of have vacations and go places. I mean, we kind of think about regional conventions as being our local convention, but the idea of saying, this is an opportunity to go visit a location and see them locally and meet some folks and,
Yep.
Versus waiting for a national convention to come around. So,
yeah, well, the PSR has people coming, the other 3 divisions are in California, Southern California. Yep. So there'll be a lot of California people here, probably a lot of people, So anyway, It's a good opportunity.
John, let me ask you a question. This clinic that you be willing to do in California, how about doing it on our show?
Well, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, it's an hour clinic, so I'd have to break it into 4. Actually, I'm doing 2 at the convention in June. I'm doing one on all the lighting, LED lighting I did for the Arizona State Capitol. They're building an HO layout in the Arizona State Capitol. Yeah. And I did all the design. It's got about 20 Arduinos, 20 different boards I did. I can control actually as many as you want, but we're planning on 1,200 to 1,600 LEDs that I can turn off individually. There'll be a 20-minute day. 24 hours is compressed into 20 minutes. And so I'll be doing a clinic on how I did that. And I'm also going to do just one kind of a general clinic on how to use Arduinos in model railroading. So anyway,
I'd be interested in both of those, John. Let me do this. Can you send me an email?
Sure.
Let me give you my email address.
Yep.
It's Jim Kello, JIMKELL 2 L's OW at New Tracks Modeling, NEWTRACKSMODELING.com.
Yeah, I'm still working on putting them together because it's not till June, but I've got them 80% complete.
I'm not talking about doing them right now anyway. This would be probably September, October timeframe.
But if you were interested in one of those in the PSR, I'd be PCR, I might be willing to do
No,
that.
absolutely. Well, one of the other things where, we've been talking about, we should talk about this is this idea of some of these kind of an extended kind of clinic on things like Arduinos. It's maybe more of a make and take of, getting to the point.
Ted Becker did some good ones, I thought, about a year and a half ago. So.
He did. He did some great ones.
Yeah, Ted is one of my best friends, so I keep in touch with him on a regular basis. He's really been struggling with his sickness.
Yeah, but it's nice to hear you say that he's getting a little bit better and maybe by of April. That's great news.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. They got the trach out and all that. So he's hoping to be home by the end of the month, but don't know.
Okay. John, something else that you might want to do is talk to Phil, because Phil has this every 2 weeks. He does the
Jim, you did that. I was already writing John an email saying, hey, yeah, we should.
I don't have his I don't have his email address.
Are you doing Zoom clinics, Phil?
We haven't decided. So we're doing at the convention this year, we're doing one clinic track on Zoom as a virtual convention, and it's being sold and marketed as a separate priced virtual convention with a few other things like reviews of there'll be a review of all the contest models and that. Just want to see how that goes.
Yeah.
You know, I have a personal, and this, and I have to say, so just gotta be careful about this. There's been a bit of a battle. I have a personal belief that concurrent conventions may not be the best way to do this. Because the problem is there's really no interaction between the people that are in the virtual convention and the people that are in the physical convention. You can't get people at a physical convention to go spend time sitting on a monitor talking to people on Zoom. And the people on Zoom never see the physical. So what they see is they see a video of the room. Maybe they can ask a question or two. So one of the thought processes, this is a couple of years old now, is to not do a virtual convention with the convention, but rather to do it as, call it an echo, or however you want to call it. But the idea would be you record all the clinics during the convention, or some percentage of the clinics during the convention. And then the virtual convention is a couple of weeks later, maybe on a weekend, where those clinics are done, and then the clinicians come back and do questions, and everybody who goes to the convention physically can go to that, plus the virtual attendees. So everybody's there together virtually. And kind of, if you think about it from a physical convention, it would be really cool to go to a clinic, watch the clinic, especially something about a technique, go home and try it. And when you figure out you can't do it, be able 2 weeks later to talk to the clinician about what your problem is. And so, one of the things I want to do is see how well this goes this time. I don't think the national convention is doing it this year. I had heard that the national convention next year, the PSR was trying to figure out if they could use the interchange to do that. And I don't know. We're just, for this one, we're still just using Zoom because the adoption for Zoom is so high to get people on. So we'll kind of see.
When you say for this one, which one are you talking about?
For the 2023 one, we're using Zoom. For the 2023 one, which is being run, no, the 2023 PCR
okay.
convention, which is being run by the CR division, they're using Zoom, and they're doing one clinic room. So we've got one clinic room set up. And the challenge is, if you haven't done this, to do it so it's reasonable, really takes some equipment. You got to have a couple, 3 cameras. We actually have a workspace camera, as well as a clinician camera, as well as a room camera. Yeah. You got to have a switcher to be able to switch between those. You've got to have microphones. We bought a wireless mic setup with a couple of lavaliers and a couple of handheld mics. It's a lot of stuff to do it. And you have to have, it turns out when you have the virtual overlay, you have to have at least one person kind of running the tech in the room. If you have a virtual Zoom meeting at the same time, you have to have somebody who is assigned and 100% dedicated to be the host in the virtual space. And you probably have to have a moderator or a host in the room physically to help the clinician and move things along. And, for example, you don't want people asking a lot of questions during the clinic because you want to be able to get the mic to them, so you won't wait till the end. And so it complicates. Having the live virtual clinic, I think, complicates the real clinic at the same time. So we'll kind of work through it, see how it goes. We're all kind of learning what it takes.
Is the PCR in April this year, in 2020?
It's April this year in Sacramento. Yep.
Yeah. So I had wanted to come to that. Just doesn't work out for me, though. So
we'd rather have you come next year anyway.
Yeah. By the way, our convention, well, we've done it for years, but if you're familiar with the hobo auction, which is a lot of fun. The whole hobo thing got started before the PSR was split off from the PCR. And you have a great story on the PCR website about how it started, who was involved. I'm sure you've read it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
anybody who might be interested in the hobo auction and who the founders were, I think it was 1960. And it's a great information about the hobo auction and how it got started. We'll have that on Thursday night at our convention.
Yep.
So it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Where is your convention going to be? Where's the hotel?
It's in Flagstaff. It's the Drury Hotel in Flagstaff.
Okay.
And of course, we go over to Williams for the train ride, but it'll be a great convention. It starts on Wednesday afternoon. I think it's June 7th, if I remember right. And then it runs through the 11th, but the train ride is on Saturday, the 10th. So if you want to ride a steam train, this is an opportunity.
Gotcha.
And on the way back, it will stop. The train will let everybody off. The train will back up and then come through, and it's up a hill, so it'll really be huffing and puffing and allow you to take pictures and videos and that kind of thing. So, and in the past, sometimes they've done that twice, backed up and twice. It'll be depend on the time, obviously, how much time they've got before they need to get back, because that night's the banquet back in Flagstaff.
Do you have a list of the vendors that are coming?
No, I do not have a list.
Okay.
There is a swap meet, obviously, and we don't really have like a other than the swap meet. That's the only thing there is.
So you really don't have a train show as part of the convention?
No, that's only usually at the National. I don't know if you guys do at the PCR or not, but
So that's another area that we've had a long conversation about. So a lot of times the facilities you can get don't have enough space. So like the one we're doing this year in Sacramento, they just don't have much space. They've got kind of a little anteroom with about 8 tables, and that's about it. It's at a premium. Turns out the space we've got, we're going to have enough room to actually have something. The problem is when I talk to vendors, the attraction of selling to the people at a convention is not huge. And, by the way, for anyone who's on here, you can comment on that. I mean, going to Chris is here, he can probably comment on it as well, but Kevin would be even better. Spending the money and time to go man a table for 3 days, 2.5 days at a convention with, 150, 175 people is hard, I think, for a lot of vendors. What we're thinking about is actually, in this, you have to have the right facility for this, but basically the hotel, the second floor is the meeting space. And when you come off the elevator, you turn right and there are the clinic rooms and the non-rail room and that, and it's actually a narrowish area to a railing. And we can put up a table there and have somebody there literally checking badges. They do that at all sorts of conventions.
Right. Yep.
And then if you go the other way, you go down to what's the ballroom, and we're going to take one part of the ballroom and put that into as the contest room. And the other part would be where we would have, some vendors and some other things. And we're thinking about maybe on Friday and Saturday doing a $5 for the public kind of thing, where you can come into the train show for $5. Or for, and for members, maybe we say it's free for members and it's $5 for the public to come in.
Yeah.
And you're not going to the convention, but you're able to see the contest room and get a flavor for it. And I think that's also a great promotion.
The swap meet that we're having, the people at the convention will get the first hour, and then the public will be able to come in. I think maybe the public has to pay a little bit. Our room has, I think, room for 32 tables at the swap meet. So here's it shows up a poster I made up about the convention, riding the steam train and so forth. I can send you this, Jim.
Okay.
That doesn't have the stuff on the bottom, so you're really interested.
Why don't you send it to Phil? Phil can send you an email and tell you where to send it to.
Okay.
You have my email. Just send it to me, John, and I'll
have your email.
Yep.
While we're talking, are you going to the National Narrow Gauge this year?
Yes,
in Denver?
yes.
I'll be there and I'll have a vehicle. So if you need to ride anywhere.
I'm actually doing the NMRA in Dallas and then flying straight from there to Denver and
Yeah.
meeting up. We're gonna do 3 days in the Southland. We've got the
Well, maybe you guys can talk about your travel plans later.
yeah, we'll talk about it separately. That's not a good thing to do here.
Yeah.
We'll shut this off anyway. So guys, that was really what I wanted to do, is just really have an opportunity to have you guys hear that. Give me any feedback. Feel free to send me anything. There was Roy, I think, Roy at one point was going to say something, and I think he stopped and he may have left. So unfortunately, we didn't hear from him.
Yeah, we
John?
hope that
That was a great presentation. I'm the superintendent of the New Jersey division, which New Jersey has 2 divisions. Up in the north, it was in the Northeast region and called the Garden State Division. And then our division, the New Jersey division, is in the southern part of the state. And so we're essentially from Trenton south with some shore communities going up to the New York Harbor. New Jersey is the most populated state in the country by square mile. It's northern New Jersey is highly urbanized, and so there are quite a few folks living there. The southern part of the state, we're actually in the garden part of the state, and it's rural. There are some towns, there are some cities, and so forth. My division, I just got the roster from NMRA, is 194 members. We were up as high as 218. So my membership, well, actually my board and I, but my membership guy is going to have to take some lead on this. We got to find out what the leakage is. Is it the higher
John,
membership fee?
no, John, I did a session on this a while back, and it's really interesting. In business, they talk about a thing called churn, and churn is how many customers, if you have a subscription business, like if you're a cell phone company, it's how many customers leave you each year to go to somebody else. And at one point, by the way, the churn in the cell phone business was up around 35%. So that meant every year, 35% of the people went to a new company. And by the way, that's really hard to manage, you can imagine. If you think about in our world, whether you call it attrition or churn, every year, some percentage of your 198 members are going to go away. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if you think about it, if a member joins the NMRA and they stay a member for 30 years, and then they depart one way or another, they move, they pass away or whatever, that's 3.33%, 1 out of 30. I raised that up to at least 5%. Personally, I'd probably go to 7. So 7% of 198 is 14 people. You're going to lose 14 people this year. It doesn't matter what you do. It's not because they're unhappy. It's not because they're mad. They're just going to go away. It's that there's a uncontrollable churn or attrition in every organization, every process. And what you do is you can't combat it. You just have to accommodate it. So what you and your recruitment, that's why this presentation is there, is exactly that. We've got 340 members. I put that number on it. I got to go out and recruit 25 to 30 people this year. And so where do you go to recruit those people? And then that thing at the end, the idea of the $10 rail pass is I want to have something that you got to do today. It's the used car salesman thing. What can I do to get you in a car today? And you got to create that urgency to do something. I think it's something we just, you guys, everybody has to think about as a real process. It just doesn't happen randomly anymore. I think.
I did want to go to something else that's really important, and I need to look at my numbers and look at that principle. I'm a member of a retirees group from the university, and we have the university has a medical school, and apparently there are a number of physicians and other professionals there that work with the aging process and older people and people in retirement and that. And I noticed that in listening to some of the presentations of these professionals, physicians and social workers and others like that, is that so much of, we know that our membership is older. I forget the last number I heard from the NMRA is somewhere between 55 and 60 years old is the average age of a member. Maybe that number is a little low, but the thing is, most of us, and just looking around at the faces I'm seeing here on the screen, a lot of us are retired. And I wonder if we need to tap the information of these individuals who study the problems of the aging population and what I've worked with colleagues on campus who have said, I'm retiring from teaching. And I said, I'm retiring to model railroading. In other words, my direction was I was going to something else. I did 40 years of that career, and I enjoyed it, and so on and so forth. Now I'm moving to something new. And I wonder whether we in NMRA need to take a look at that, if that is going to be our recruiting area or an important part of our recruiting, that maybe we need to tap those areas, those academic or medical areas or social areas, to find out what are the keys to getting somebody, for example, a person who had some Lionel trains and never did model railroading because of an active career, and now all of a sudden he doesn't have a job anymore. He doesn't need a job, or she, for that matter. And how do we tap that in saying, look, this is something that you can do to keep yourself cognitively active, physically active, socially active, and so on, so that we're actually doing something very good for these individuals, doing it very good for all of the people on the screen here and the people I have in my division and I know elsewhere in NMRA. That's my point.
Yeah,
John, let me ask you a question. You have a local newspaper?
Local newspaper?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got newspapers in Trenton. We've got the Philadelphia major newspapers, and there are county newspapers and some local papers. Yes.
What I have found in my community, I live in Florida, and I just got asked to write a monthly column for my local newspaper. I've never had anything to do with newspapers before. In my community, there are an awful lot of retired people. Part of my rationale and thinking and why this interests me is because just what you were saying. The older person is a natural, in my opinion, because there's so many of us right now that are model railroaders, and there's got to be others that have had the same life experiences that we have, and maybe they just haven't made the same decision about becoming a model railroader yet. Well, my thought process was, how do I communicate with them? Chances are they either subscribe or get access to the local newspaper. Well, if I can get the local newspaper to allow me to write a column once a month in their newspaper, then I can talk about model railroading and try to focus my article in an area that I think might interest that kind of a population. Second reason I'm doing it is because we are the only nonprofit organization of just volunteer model railroaders that offers a scholarship for kids that want to continue after high school into a STEAM program in a college or university or accredited technical school. We're the only group that's doing that. And this allows me to talk to the parents and grandparents, again, through the newspaper, in the same kind of article and encourage them to have their son, daughter, grandkids, whoever, apply for our scholarship, because one of the purposes that we have is try to get the communication going, since we're just a bunch of volunteers, and so we got to figure out how on earth we get our message out. All the costs that we have are donated costs from the people that are watching this show right now. So we owe it to them to try to get creative. So one of the ways that you might consider, and I know this is different, is go to your local newspaper and try to get them to give you space in that newspaper to write about model railroading.
So I think the other thing that would be very interesting would be to talk to some of those folks about, the idea of in aging, this article that I read, and I was trying to find it. I can't find it again, but it was a study that was done where, the quotation was that people who had 4 hobbies live 5 years longer in retirement. And I think this idea about engagement and social engagement and keeping active, and a way of quantifying that. And the question is, how do you get people contemplating retirement to begin to think about it? What do you do? And I know that was a process I went through very much like you did, of actively, as I contemplated retiring and realized you had time to decide, what do I want to do with that time? Because if you don't, then you end up saying, well, I'll just keep working a little bit, and you end up not really ever retiring. So interesting perspectives.